Now, Forbes magazine just released their Billionaires list tonight. And topping it out are Mexican billionaire Carlos Slim Helú, Microsoft CEO Bill Gates, and investor in Berkshire Hathaway CEO Warren Buffett. But this year, we see the emergence of BRIC countries as key players, making up half of this list, while the U.S. begins to lose its grip. Now, while we all anxiously await the release of this list annually to get a look at the who's who and get excited, dreaming about what every one of us would do with that much money, you can't help but notice the disparities. This year's Forbes list broke some records. The total number of billionaires at 1,210, and the combined wealth of $4.5 trillion. All that while the wealth gap in the United States is at a historic level, and while the top 1% of the population in America own more wealth than the bottom 90% combined. Now, here to discuss it with me is Adam Hirsch, economist at the Center for American Progress. Adam, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
First of all, God, these guys are rich, huh? That's a lot of money.
They're really rich, and there's $4.5 trillion in combined wealth with these Forbes billionaires. There's 1.5 billion people in the world living on $1 a day or less. That means these billionaires could double the incomes of these 1.5 billion poor people around the world, and they'd still be billionaires.
And it just doesn't seem right? I mean, we're still supposedly reeling from this economic crisis that hit the entire world. And right now we're seeing protests all across the world. We're seeing rising food prices. Unemployment is high. And then at the same time, these billionaires, there are more of them, and they're getting richer. How does that even happen?
Well, I think we have to ask, why is it that these people are becoming so rich? And there is growth happening around the world, especially in the BRICS, the Brazil, Russia, India, China. And that's where we see a lot of the growth in the billionaires happening. So there's new rich people being created, but so some of that wealth is being spread around the world, but around the world, the wealth is still being concentrated at people only at the top. And when we talk about inequality increasing, what that means is that the rich are getting richer while the rest of us are running in place or even falling behind. And we have to stop and think about, what is it about our society, what is it about our economic system that allows all of the gains from this economic growth to be concentrated in so few people?
And, I wish there was more billionaires out there like Bill Gates. The thing that's incredible to me, too, is that he would have still been #1 had he not given away 1/3 of his wealth to, charitable causes. And now he's still #3. I mean, this guy's got a lot of money, too.
Bill Gates is rich. There are 1,200 super rich people on this list of Forbes billionaires. And, and some people are doing great things with it, like Bill Gates helping fund drug vaccine research and so on. But the question is, why are the gains from growth not going to the people who are doing the work? And that's happening everywhere in the world. That's happening in this country, in the United States. And the trend towards increasing inequality in the United States has actually been going on for longer than I've been alive. So people at the bottom, which is to say 90% of the population in the United States, has seen low or no rise in their incomes in a generation.
And at the same time, we see the United States, falling behind globally. As we mentioned, we see a lot of new billionaires that are making this list coming from the BRIC countries, from Brazil, Russia, India, and China. The U.S. is falling behind, and you got to wonder how we're falling behind, but we still have the richest people in the entire world.
Well, they can stay rich because they're in a globalized marketplace for their businesses. So even though the economy isn't growing so robustly in the United States, it is growing in other parts of the world where they're conducting business. And it shows that the fortunes of those people at the top are no longer connected to what's happening to the fortunes of the rest of us in the country.
I want to mention one thing that George Soros actually said today. He was talking about China and said that it's a sad fact that Western democracies provide less successful leadership than China. But he said that their model of state capitalism, could pose a danger if it becomes the envy of the world. Do you think that there are other people out there, other countries that are envious of China and that are going to want to mimic their, their program?
Well, first of all, I disagree with the premise that the model of the United States is one that is no longer to be envied. People from all over the world are look to the United States as something to emulate. And yeah, China has been quite successful in recent years. And so naturally, countries want to find what's going to work for them, especially when growth has been so hard to come for many countries in the world, even where there has not been problems with inequality. Growth has been hard to come.
But does it mean that everyone's going to stop and give up on democracy and say, let's be like China? Let's hope not, right?
China, their system has some advantages and has produced many years of robust economic growth, but it also has some limitations. And having the flexibility and the ability to respond to people's wills through democratic political institutions is an important part of an economy as well. And I think as China moves forward, they're going to start realizing the limitations of their political system.
Yeah, and I still choose democracy personally. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.